Okay, guys. Hopefully you can see this and hear me. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to do a tutorial for how to set up views. So this is all about like perspective and rendering collages, basically perspective views using Rhino. Um, and so we're going to show up how to save views and how to set up those views using the camera. We're going to look at applying materials. And scaling and kind of orienting those materials correctly. And then we'll also look at kind of settings within Rhino to kind of achieve different atmospheres or looks or kind of character, more of a kind of collage style versus more of a fully rendered style that can be integrated into kind of the design process rather than be this thing that you do at the very end that takes a ton of time. Okay, so first off, I'm going to jump in. I'll say this model is just what I happen to have right now. It's a little bit of a work in progress, so there's certain things you'll see that are a little funky on this. Like this is not complete, but I think for the purposes here, it will be useful. Just the panels you're going to want to have open. You're going to want to have named views. Display is nice to have, as well as some of the standards, layers, uh, properties, but the ones that are kind of different here that will also be useful, definitely want materials, and then for the rendered stuff at the end, having lights as well will be helpful. But so to start off, just to kind of show you guys, so yeah, those are the panels. First thing I want to show you guys is how to get saved views. So like, yes, of course we could kind of get, right now I'm in isometric mode, but if I was to switch this to perspective, we want to get a perspective. Of course I could, and we see that down here, of course I could kind of like rotate around, try to get to a point I like. There's weird clipping happening, but ignore that for now. I'll just throw it in Arctic actually. There, I could get close, but we want to be pretty deliberate about this, right? So I'm trying to kind of line it up over the door, but you can see here that I'm not exactly there, and maybe I find this and I do a bunch of Photoshop work, and I want, if I'm not kind of saving each of these views, then I have to like redo all the Photoshop work. And so basically it's really helpful to have, you can see here, I have a few of these views for this project that are kind of aligned and in the orientation I want. This top one was I'll show this real quick. The top one is for like a planned perspective with the roof hidden. This is like an exterior entry sequence one that I set up. You can notice here that like even this is not aligned, but I'm able to like, rotate around, but then come back exactly to this view. So to set these up, and actually maybe we'll do one that is actually kind of aligned over this doorway. We'll change this to be exactly where we want it. But the way we do this is, I think it's helpful, you double click in to the kind of panel window, the viewport window, so it pulls up multiple options. For this, I'm going to be trying to refine this one, so we'll just kind of just isolate these two. Notice that like it's really important here that like when it's blue, that means if you're zooming in and out, that's it's modifying that view. So what we're going to do here is we're going to basically be using this, but what's really important here is we'll have the ability in another view to manipulate exactly where the camera is. So my kind of trick for doing this, generally we're taking views, it's a good starting point to just like, in all likelihood, you'll at least have one view that's set up kind of with the camera perpendicular to the face of your building. So the way I'm going to get to that here is I'm going to just go, I'm going to type left, oh no, it's not the left view, it's the front view maybe. Yeah, so front. And so what's great about that, so I'm not going to zoom in or zoom out of this, but I'm going to click into this and zoom in and see that here. This camera is now exactly perpendicular to the face of my building. So I don't have to kind of do any rotation stuff and change the angle. Oops, I zoomed in or zoomed out. It still is perpendicular, but that's what you should be wary of not doing, what I just did. Also, if camera is not showing up for you guys, the way to get that is you basically click on the viewport that you want to like control the camera on, and you literally just type, what is it, camera, and then you do either hide, I'm doing hide just so I can, because this is what yours might look like. You might not have any ability to see that camera. So you just click camera and then show, and it will pop up. And now I can click on this midpoint and I can control where that is. I can control that vertically. I can change the angle. I'm not going to do that for now, but great. So we have this in line, great. I'm going to switch this, not there, I'm going to go to here and switch this from parallel projection to perspective. So now this is a perspective camera, if that makes sense. I'm going to bring this way forwards, and you can see that this is currently, it is currently at 50 millimeters. I think that's a little, it's a little too large of a focal length, so I'm going to drop that to say 35. Great. Generally, 50 millimeters is what the human eye sees. So there's the higher that number, the less distortion, and the more like a multi-view drawing it will be. But the lower this number, the kind of the more distortion is happening, but you're getting a lot more in the frame. And so generally for interiors, we do lower numbers, like in the 14 to 24 range, dependent on the size of the space. That can be larger if needed, but for exteriors, it's more common to be doing a higher value. But generally, you know, it kind of depends on what you want the feel of your view to be. You know, like if you want your building to like appear small, it's probably better to have a higher focal length and shoot it from farther back. If you want your building to appear, you know, kind of large and have, you could do it more from a kid's perspective. So, you know, set it even lower and reduce the focal length. And this is where it gets a little confusing, because you'll notice here it's 50, but actually this is the one I'm working on. It's 35. Great. Okay, so cool. So one note with the camera is that if you click on this point or this point to move it, it will change the angle of the view, which we don't really want to do for this one. If you click on the center point of the line and move that, then it will just change the the height of all of the lines at once. I'm also going to reduce. I forget how to. Let me see. Actually, I want to reduce the scale of this. I think I can do it. Yeah. So I just want to reduce the size of this box basically, so that it's closer to my actual building. But I'm not changing anything here. So now I'm going to just take that and get that a little closer. Great. That's just for like ease of doing all of this. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm in this bottom view, I'm gonna go left, and you'll notice here that this height, what is it? It is 6 feet 6 inches, which is, you know, unless this is the house for NBA players, we probably want this lower. So you'll notice I'm not doing this in a kind of perspective view. I jumped into a multi-view, like a left-facing view, to make it easier to manipulate these. So now I'm going to move. Oh, shoot. Forgot my aliases. I'm going to do move. I'm going to go to the ground, and I'm going to go up by 5 feet. 5 feet I like. I'm maybe slightly on the taller side, but I like, you know, it doesn't have to be 5 feet, but in the kind of 4, 5, 4 feet to 5 foot height is I think 5 is pretty good. Good kind of generic eye level for people. But so now I'm gonna go top. Or actually here I might actually to get this aligned in the other direction. So great, we have this aligned at the correct height we want. But now what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to align it exactly over this doorway. So that kind of requires me being a little careful with where I'm setting my view up. We're going to go across. Oh my god, I lost it. Select all. This is, it's always a little tricky doing this, getting this set up right, but once it's done, the beauty of saved views, I don't know what happened there. The beauty of saved views is that we'll have it saved and we don't have to mess with it again. I don't know why my camera is so far away. It's kind of annoying, but maybe I'll try. It also went up too. Okay, so I'm gonna have to move this down. Again, I'm basically just doing that same manipulation again. 5 feet up, and now I'm going to move this top. Yes, so I'm locking it to this plane, and then I can rotate out of that, and it's basically pinned to only being rotated or only being moved on the axis that I established. And that allows me to come in here and grab the center point of this lintel. Right here. So what that means now is this should be, yeah, exactly aligned over the doorway. Great. And so, great, but we have this view where we want it. I click on the blue, and then because I have one, basically I can do this 2 ways. The easiest way, if you don't have any of these views already, you just click Save As, and it's like aligned entry. Alternatively, maybe I'm like, ooh, I actually want to be slightly closer to this, and I move this up a little bit. You can save over these and kind of update them by right-clicking on it and going Save Current Viewport as Named View. So I'll do that just for this one, just to show you. Yes. Oh! See? That was because the blue was on here. So I gotta be here. I'm gonna just do this again. So that's one of the things. So always be careful of like what is the view that you're working within. Great. Okay, that's how to save views. And you'll notice just looking at these other ones I've created, this one is this kind of interior condition. It's also perspective. It's at 24 focal length, so it's getting a kind of wider range of that interior space. This is also at 24. This is also at 24. Cool. So we got some stuff to work with. Okay, that's saved. That's naming views and saving views, how you would set that up. Okay, next thing we're going to do here is we're going to look at importing materials. So right now I'm in an Arctic view, so it doesn't have anything. If I switch this over to rendering, you'll notice that I've brought in a bunch of different materials. I haven't brought in everything for this project, but I've brought in like a stucco material for the exterior, which if I generally selecting stuff and zoom selected, I feel like is a good trick when you're working in perspective because it kind of resets the view and makes it so you're less likely to like scroll through an object. But here you can see the stucco I have. I also have kind of like a different kind of, maybe this is the same. Oh no, this is different. This is the kind of block material Here's a kind of concrete. I have some various wood ones. I have a painted. Um, I haven't exactly figured out what I'm going to do with these windows, so I have a couple different options for those. But I have kind of a wide range of materials. I have like a generic dirt as well. Basically, the way that we apply these, um, there are kind of generally two ways, and it largely depends on your layer structure. So the way I like to model things when I get to this kind of level of resolution with which you may or may not have in your model is I like to, you know, and you can see I haven't fully um, resolved this yet, but once I kind of have the idea of the building down and I'm not making big broad changes to, you know, uh, the the circulation or the setup or whatever, I will create my 3D layers based on material. So here you can see there's like a half inch board plus plaster, and so that's going to get a particular material. I have a um, uh, half inch thick material that is 2-inch wood strips, which is this thing here. I have a ply layer, which I think you can see on this like upper band on the interior. I have this kind of ply band. And I think that's really helpful because the so yes, you can set materials by layer, and then if I'm making changes, I basically will add a material here to the layer bar, and if my objects, like if I click on my objects and my properties are set up, I guess it's not. Well, regardless, I could go here and I could select all of my concrete. So all of my concrete layers selected, and then I can basically have have the material apply to all of them. But the other way is like if, say, you have a 3D model where it's more kind of broken up by like element, you can also kind of change the material properties on an object individually. In either realm, the way we kind of control this, if you're doing it broadly to a group, you can click into it through here. Um, but the other way of kind of getting to this is through this materials panel. And so what we're going to do, we'll go to, let's just take this exterior, for example. Right now, I have all of my materials in here already. But the way we would kind of add a new one is, where is that? Sorry, let me enlarge this. So click on this guy, and we'll go type. It might look slightly different on yours. Oh, but here we can go import. So you can either start from scratch, you can start from existing. These are all the ones I've already have imported, but you can what you do is you can import, and then you'll go to, some folder that you have where you have a bunch of, where is this? Sorry, drawing stock. Material texture. So I have a whole folder that has a bunch of kind of high quality JPEG seamless images that I've pulled off from online and can drop into this. And so so basically you'll do that. You'll, find your build up a collection based on this project. You can kind of grow that as you have other projects in the future. But basically you bring that in. It will probably be radically out of scale here. I'm gonna go to let me think. I'm gonna do something here that I'll explain how I'm doing this in a second, but explain how I did that and how you set that up at the end of this video, but just for ease of editing this right now, just so I don't have to mess with lighting. Okay, cool. So basically, actually, you know what? Sorry, I'm just going to go back to this. Say I have these two things. I think a helpful trick with doing any of these material edits is the isolate tool. So you select kind of objects, isolate, and basically that allows you to kind of have these on their own. And if you're in the kind of rendered mode, as you saw, like the lighting in that interior should have been set up, but sorry. Oh, it was the skylight was not on. I don't know why that was doing that. But anyways, sorry, getting back on track here. So isolate allows you to kind of be editing these and, you know, getting your materials dialed without like the rest of the model there. And then there's a trick that allows you to basically batch. You get your object set up as you like it in one spot, and then you can easily populate that to other places in the model. But I think that the general setup of materials is easier when you have, you know, one kind of object alone. So one way of kind of doing this, so if we go to materials, let's find out what this is. This is, sorry, properties. Actually don't normally do this way, but basically, if you guys remember with line types, you can do the match layer command. A really useful one for bringing materials across is the match properties command. So I'm going to type, so basically I want to get the information of this box on this box. And so what I do is I go match properties, I select the object to modify, or sorry, select, not this one. I select the object to modify, enter, I select the source object, enter. And it's going to do all of these different characters, the big one, course, material. So that brings that across, great. But say I'm looking at this, I'm like, ooh, actually, you know, I think the scale is generally okay on this right now, but say I don't actually like the orientation of this, and I want this top face running this way, and I want this face running this way. Basically, the way that we control either the scale of this or the orientation, if we go to, okay, box mapping. Where is this again? Box edit. So I'm going to pause this for 1 second because I don't know where box mapping is right now. Oh, here it is. So you get to it under properties, and then you kind of go across to this texture mapping. Excuse me, it's not box mapping is the specific technique, but it's gotten to through the texture mapping under properties. And so basically what this does is this, clicking on box mapping and setting this up, this is how you might set it up when you're first bringing in the material. And so I can click a corner, it doesn't have to be exactly aligned over the object, and say I just go 1 foot, enter, 1 foot, enter, 1 foot, enter. And so you'll notice that slightly changed the scale of this. And I think I actually like that better. What do you guys think? I think it's actually slightly smaller. No, the seam is here. I probably want to go bigger. So we'll do that again. We'll go, let's go like 5 feet. 5 feet, 5 feet, 5 feet. And I always have this, yeah, I think that's actually a little bit better. Seems more real to like a full sheet of plywood. I'll always do a cube, or almost always do a cube, because it means all the faces will be kind of consistent. You might change it slightly if you're doing tile pattern or something, but I think it's pretty complex. and usually easier to just edit a cubic object. So I want to see this, and so you can always kind of hide or show this. It's called a mapping widget, is that box that you've created. Um, and so basically, as you notice, like it doesn't have to be aligned. This can be located anywhere in space. But I have either, I think it's easy to do on the gumball, but you can also kind of change the orientation down here on this XYZ rotation. But let's just rotate this. Let me think about this. So we want this to go 90. We want this to go 90. And this to go 90. There we go. So it's aligned on the top, it's aligned, it's aligned. Great. That was the orientation we were looking for. And say we like what we did here and we want to apply it to this one, let's just do that match properties command. So select the object to modify, enter, select source object, enter. Boom. Great. Done. Okay. So that's how to mess with your materials. You are also able to get into, I could modify this, like I could, if it's glass or some metallic thing that also needs kind of like a sheen or some kind of lighting effect, those kind of settings can be modified within the material, within the kind of material settings. But for the purposes here, I'm just gonna, I'm just going to just be working with the kind of texture image that I brought in. Okay, great. So now what should we do? So I'm going to go show. I'm going to hide. I'm going to hide this widget. Great. So let's go to that exterior view that we set up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you guys, I showed you guys the match properties command, that's great. What I'm now going to show is how to set up your Rhino to get kind of two very different styles. Once we, of course that materials, that stuff takes a while. You have to kind of set those for, if not objects individually, certainly for like material or for like broad material groups. So that takes a while to get set up, and it also necessitates stuff like this. Like if there is a material change, like here I have exposed block versus a stucco finish, you'll notice I had to create a layer of stucco that is able to be its own material. Come on, this is so annoying. Trying to get into this other view, but it keeps selecting the object. So you'll notice that like, set display mode. You'll notice that the block material is different than this kind of thin, I don't know, inch thick or somewhat or similar material for the different like rendered material on the outside. So that kind of stuff that takes a while. But like once you've done all that, once you have like your materials where you want them, what I'm going to show you now are two broadly different approaches. So one of them is kind of a more collage style, but a collage style that all of the material stuff lives in Rhino, and you don't have to be applying materials in Photoshop. And the other one is a more like rendered realistic lighting setup. So first to show you guys the collage option. So the way that I do this is using a command that is very powerful and I think kind of underutilized. I've used it a couple times here, you've probably noticed, but it's called Set Object Display. And so if we're in these viewports, the default is that, if we're in rendered view, it's showing materials. If we're in Arctic view, it's kind of making everything a generic white material, whatever. If we're in ghosted, you can see through whatever. But what's really cool about Rhino is we have the ability to be in a particular view with, a, a, a series of lighting conditions or effects, but then bring in material properties from another viewport. So that's what we're going to do here. So right now, to get to this kind of collage view, we want to be in shaded, and we want all of our objects to be in rendered view. So I'm going to go to shaded, and I'm actually going to no, I'll leave the ground gray, that's fine. I'm going to select all of my building. I'm going to go set object display mode. Okay, well, I did that. We're going to go set object display mode, type M, and then specify R for rendered. Boom. And so I already have this set up. Your probably is not going to look exactly like this, but I'll show you how to get here. And so this would be like more of a kind of cartoonish or like collage style. The other option would be this, which I don't know why my interior lighting is not showing up in this view, but it's like that, but like a more kind of rendered view with proper lighting and everything. And so the way that we do this, so I'm gonna go back to that shaded. So you go down to, click on the viewport bar, you go down to display options. And once you have display options on in our shaded view, we want to make sure that if we scroll down here, I unclick light, and my lighting method, I do no lighting. I then go to object, that's it. That's all you have to do for that. I think I also have flat shading, but don't just do those two for now. We then go to our rendered view, and we go to objects, and we go to surfaces, and wait, let me just, oh yeah, okay. So if you want lines, you can get them in this kind of collaged view. I tend to not have the lines in here, and if I want to add a faint line, I will do a make 2D of this view and overlay it in Photoshop. But if you want to do it just a one-stop shop, you can do that again because these objects are in their rendered view. You don't kind of modify them here, you modify the objects here. So for surfaces, we could also, I don't know why this was 1 before, but if this is 0, then you're not going to get any line. Let me see what 1 looks like. And maybe we want like a very faint line. Maybe this is too much. Like we like, pretend, perhaps we like what's happening where we can kind of see the breakdown of these blocks when they're exposed, but we don't want it to be quite so black and harsh. I think 1 is as small. 1, so rendered objects, surfaces. I think 1 is as small as we can go, but we could always tweak this to be like a, let's try this. Yeah, so that would be 1. So if you basically change the color of that to be reduced a little bit, you you could kind of reduce the effect of that line. But I'm just going to go to 0 for now, just so it's very extreme. Um, and so another thing you guys have noticed with this is not necessary, but I do like to, in my display settings, I like to have kind of distinct backgrounds for each of my different like viewports, just so I know where I am, and I know what I'm working in. And so the way you can change those is also in display options. Um, Now I'm in shaded again, and here for the shaded, I do a gradient 2-color. Um, for renders, I often do transparent, or depending on the architecture, I'll sometimes go solid white, solid color white. But transparent is normally best because it means you don't have to like clip out if there's a window or something in Photoshop to add a background. Um, but yeah, just do gradient, and then I do a kind of greeny ground and a bluey sky. Yeah, great. So that's that. And then for the other one, for the more realistically lit option, so let me just make sure actually this is a transparent background. Display options. Yes, transparent. Yeah. Okay, cool. And so for this one, what I'm doing differently is I have my sun set up. And so when you're setting up a sun, if you go to the sun kind of sun panel, what you can do is you'll notice that I have, you can basically choose a particular location. And if your project is located in the Rhino model with reference to true north, basically it will give you the correct lighting conditions of of your um, your site. And so here you can do, I think there's a thing that allows now, yeah, you can click now, and it will do the lighting conditions for exactly right now. This is an ancient computer, so I think part of the reason that this is not rendering the interior lighting that I set up is because of a just the hardware I'm working with. But I'm going to do just a render preview to see if it's if the rectangular light on the interior that I created is showing up. But yeah, you see in this rendered preview, yes, I'm getting the kind of shadow from the sun cast realistically in the project. But in the render preview, that kind of fuzzy option for rendering, that took 3 seconds. It's just like it's what it sounds like. It's a preview to make sure the thing is working kind of how you want it to. And so look at this one, and then if I go to lights, so I set up a rectangular light on the interior of this space. So if I go cell light, you can see here, I put it on the inside of this space, and I turned it on. And the way you add one of these, you literally can just type, you can use these guys here. You can set up like rectangular light, I generally like, but you can set up like spotlights, different directional lights, kind of as far as you want to go. I can literally just type, I think rectangular light, and then you just, you start with like the direction you want it to point, and then you just, here we go. So I want it to point this way. I'm in ortho mode, so it's going to be a little bit weird, but CSA. But you'll see it has like a directional arrow that shows. It's kind of hard to see right now because I forget how to change the kind of color of this, regardless, it shows you kind of the size of the light as well as the direction, and then you can change the intensity of all of that. But just so I can show that like this is working how I want it to, so I'm gonna just delete that thing I just created. Um, but if I go to lights, I'm gonna for now turn this off. So that I'm turning off the light that was in the interior, and it's just the sun. And you'll notice when I do the render preview of that, the inside is probably going to be a lot darker. Yeah. So you notice the difference between that and this. And so this is the kind of thing where, like, this is the kind of agency in image making that we want to have control over. Is that, like, I'm not putting down a value judgment as to which of these is better. It kind of depends what the project is trying to communicate. If the project is about, like, this kind of exterior expression and its relationship with sight, then like I could see this being a better option, and possibly even throwing a door over this, and whatever. But if it's about this kind of inviting interior space, then like calibrating your lighting to be more in this kind of realm, I think would be more appropriate. And so for this, great, I have these previews. That took 3 seconds. I think this kind of thing is like, the way I work, and you guys can be working moving forwards as we're kind of refining these, is have your saved views, do like a render preview, and you can have a Photoshop file where if you're using those saved views, you can just update like and they're linked images. You save these and you just literally replace them as kind of minor things with the geometry changes. So then if in Photoshop you have a background of kind of desert and maybe some landscaping elements, that will kind of update automatically. And so this is like a good thing, a good way to be quickly working for desk crits, whatever. And then, but say we want to do, the full kind of refined view, we do this full kind of render option, and this should pull up. Where is it? I don't know what I had my settings on. But this is going to take longer to run. Oh yeah, this will take a couple minutes to run. But yeah, this is not going to take super long. So honestly, just do this for desk crits. But if you're doing a real kind of final draft of these can take a while. And so let's see. Actually, I don't want to wait through all this, but at the very end, you'll have the ability to save this. And you can save it and then integrate it with your working Photoshop file. But you can see the resolution, the material character is a lot kind of clearer in this. The lighting, in this we really only have that sun, so there's not a ton going on. But here actually, yes, I want to stop rendering. So your render settings before kind of running that you can get to them through here. Why is this not popping up? Render settings. Oh, it's showing in a panel. Oh, it's showing down here. And so, yeah, you can, where's the quality? You can, quality is up here. So good quality, final quality, all of those affect speed, DPI affects speed. Yeah, but so let me just show you with this skylight. We'll just do, what is it, good quality, that's fine. So just see what this looks like. Yeah, so you can see how it's going to increasingly resolve what's happening on the interior. But yeah, so there we go. I'm not going to wait until this whole thing goes. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me if you guys have any questions with any of this. Thanks. Okay.